Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. This is episode 25, and I'm joined by three guests, Curtis, Osi, and Athena, and they're members of the People's Party of Texas. And we're going to learn so much more about the People's Party of Texas today. I have so many questions just with the title, and I've seen People's Parties pop up all over the country. And I want to see what these three people are talking about to educate my audience and hopefully we can get a better understanding of the positions of the People's Party of Texas and the history, how it was created. But before we even get started with that, I want to say welcome to the show and thanks for accepting the invitation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
We're excited to have the opportunity to talk with like minds.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. But Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum has no issue talking with differing minds as well.
Mhm.
No, like minds makes good conversations too.
Yeah.
And let's see where we are as far as ideology and even your upbringing. I'm curious to hear each person's upbringing, starting with Curtis, and then we can kind of go into Osi and Athena. What got you into politics growing up as a person, and
Mhm.
just where you're from?
Sure. I give my story in a nutshell. Grew up middle class in suburban Texas. I'm 42 now, so I was born in 1980. Most of my childhood was spent in a very conservative household. Grew up in a church environment. So just culturally, I considered myself a Republican for most of my early childhood, just because that's what my family. I didn't know any better. As I became a young adult, when I joined the military, joined the Marine Corps when I was 20, and then I called myself a libertarian for a lot of my 20s. At the time, could I really have told you what that means? Probably not. It was mostly just kind of regurgitating things that I had heard and that made me sound cool. Freedom. Yeah, I'm all about freedom, no matter what, no matter who gets hurt, right? That was kind of my attitude. It was really in my 30s, especially after being sent to Iraq twice, where I started to question things and realize that all these things that I had been told about the world just weren't true. So yeah, that led me over a long journey. I really didn't start becoming politically active, and probably until about um, 4 or 5 years ago. And through that journey led me to where I am now with the People's Party of Texas. And as far as my political ideology, from when I was in my 20s to now, it's probably about as opposite as you can get. I don't know if, yeah, we could talk about that, about what that are, but yeah.
But that's great. I mean, we've already seen just in your introduction just quite a few transformations, and that's good. I think just I've had audience members reach out to me and say how they've just transformed within the last few years and just kind of question things a little bit more, question what they knew growing up as a person and everything else. Osi?
Yeah. So I'm a first generation American. I was raised by Nigerian immigrants. I was raised in Texas. I grew up in the 90s. We were, middle class, lower middle class suburb. We were always nominally Democrats my whole life. I just, I assumed that I was a Democrat, but I wasn't political until, you get into college. And then even in college, I was more issue based and less like party based or anything like that. I did some work with Athena on like reproductive justice or like criminal and drug reform, things like that. College work. But after I guess it was really when Bernie ran. And I guess that was 2016, the first time Bernie ran, I was like politically activated. And I liked a lot of the stuff that he was saying. It made a lot of sense to me. It's in a lot of different ways at the time. And then I saw what the DNC did to him, at least what it looked like to me, and that sort of disillusioned me with the idea of being a Democrat. Especially like running Hillary Clinton, like where I was at that time, Hillary Clinton represented, everything bad with the federal government. And so like the fact that people were shaming me for not like loving her when it's like, have you seen her history? Sort of like opened my eyes to like, this is just tribalism. This isn't anything deeper about like, helping people or making this a better place to live or anything like that, making the world better, anything like that. It's just tribalism, money, popularity contests, things like that. So that sort of disillusioned me at that time with like two-party politics. And from 2016, I was so, I don't know what the word would be. I don't want to keep using disillusioned, but like like bamboozled, whatever that
Is
like.
that what the D stands for in Democrat? Disillusion?
Yeah. Exactly. That I kind of like just went on a political journey for like years. I went to the right, I went to the left. I didn't really know. I still wouldn't know what to call myself. And so that's kind of where I am now. I was, right now I'm just like, I am against like abuses of power pretty much from the federal government in whatever form it takes. And so, yeah, I found the People's Party. Again, they were saying things that appealed to me, and Athena was deeper in it than I was at the time. And so like, she was telling me some good things and I ended up joining, and then, we'll get into it, but like, yeah, now we're here with the People's Party of Texas. That's like quick elevator story. Yeah.
Athena?
So yeah, my dad is a Mexican immigrant that was adopted by an American woman. My mom is a Texican, like a hardcore Texas American. I don't know. So they had very differing, ideas of the way we would be raised, but the thing that they agreed was like, they're liberals, and so that definition growing up was so like, in Fort Worth is more conservative town, so that definition was very loose. And like, they, not to out them, but this isn't a secret, but they like voted for the Bush senior, and they like got into fights with my hippie family that were like, oh my God, you're not liberal at all, you're voting for a warmonger. And this was like so long ago. And I remember being like, trying to be like against them, and I was like, well, I'm for Gore, obviously, just to be, whatever. And I didn't even know about Nader. I don't know. I'm just so like sad at myself. I'm like, oh, I could have known so much so sooner, whatever. But that was like, I feel like one of the initial times I really remember the like Bush Gore election in elementary school for some reason. So I think it's just my parents like putting us in the like, we're always watching politics, always watching news. And then I think I actually got like more knowledgeable in college when we were doing the reproductive justice stuff. And like, we created this pro-choice Aggies organization, which is this school that's notoriously pro-life, that created the 40 Days of Life campaign that exists now, where during Lent they protest outside of every abortion clinic for 40 days because that's the best way to use your time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so like seeing that, but then also going to a really conservative school, and then seeing that it wasn't as simple as these people hate these, like there are those, extremists that hate anybody that goes to Planned Parenthood, but then there are just people that don't have an opinion one way or the other. Maybe they're a hardcore conservative, but then they need birth control or they whatever. So it opened my eyes more to like, things were not as cut and dry. I had a really good friend that was in the like Democrats, and I saw how it was just like pledged to the Democrats. It was not about any of the issues. It was not about any of the people. It was like just pledge. And it's like, this is another monarchy. Just now we're pledging to these people. So yeah, then eventually like the Bernie stuff happened, and I was like, I'm never being a Democrat again in 2016. And then 2020 happened. I was like, I had to vote for Bernie. Waste. What a waste. It's like as soon as we voted, or was it like before we even got to vote, he had dropped out. Like,
I think it was like right after we voted.
yeah, it was brutal. So yeah, then I was like, nope, I'm not giving my money. I'm not donating. I'm not. If there's one person on a local level, okay, I can believe in that, but I'm not gonna do anything for that system because I am perpetuating it.
Mhm.
And so seeing this, like OC said, like Curtis said, there's this group of people that are saying things that I agree with. And it's not even like, oh, I want abortion and I want healthcare. It's like, I want a voice in my government. I want to hear what my neighbor has to say. We maybe know better what our community wants. So then meeting these people, I've joked, but I mean it. I felt like I found my new religion just because I felt you find other people that are ready to commit to hearing other people, even if they disagree, and to working with them. And I've never seen it better than like what we've been doing. And we're still, growing a lot, but I feel there's so much potential because all of us are really, really open to healing with, people that we're not supposed to talk to anymore or whatever. Like, we want to do something. So yeah, I've gotten hope again from this, Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said, Athena, because on this forum, we've done over 20 episodes now, and we've had some people on that are still searching themselves politically and everything, still learning about the issues, what their philosophies are individually. And there's so many people who left that Bernie movement and they felt burned by, the Sanders campaign and everybody else involved. And then, I have a lot of Trump people come in, they felt like they were wronged this last time around. And I see a lot of people kind of trying to search and figure out, like, is this the right thing for me to keep perpetuating this two-party system, this one-party system? Or do I need to actually look into what I believe in and just kind of talk to different types of people and figure out things like what can we work on together as people instead of all the fighting and the money influences in politics. Like you said before, it's just a tribe aspect, really. You're supporting a party and not really like principles at that point. And I was curious, what would you say the composition of the People's Party of Texas entails? Are these just former people with the Bernie campaign? Are these libertarians, Greens? Are these just all types of people, conservatives? What would you say is the makeup of your party, and who founded the People's Party of Texas?
Well, who wants to take? You want to take that, Curtis, or?
As far as so a lot of us were involved with a lot of us had met. So I met Athena through another organization, the Movement for a People's Party. There was a lot of disillusionment with that as well, and I'll just leave it at that. It wasn't what we had thought it was going to be. I think a lot of us felt kind of bamboozled by the whole thing. So when it came, when that imploded here in Texas, there was, should we just quit? Move on, find something else. And I think we got to talking, and we had already started doing great things. We had already started organizing and reaching out to people in our communities, and we said, why stop it? Why should we let the failure of this organization keep us from doing the work that we want to keep pursuing? And that's what we just decided. Let's just, we'll just start our own. And yeah, that's where we are now. That was about 2 years ago when we started that journey, and we're still here. So, which I think is a testament to all of our passion about it. The fact that we're still here, as hard as it's been.
Yeah.
You mentioned, what's that?
I was gonna say, as far as the makeup, I don't know, what would you say? I would say it's really, you wouldn't expect. It's not just like ex-Democrats. It's I think it's people who are.
I think it's a lot of people who otherwise would have exited the system, and that like myself and Curtis, like, I mean, it's like there's so many people that don't participate anymore, and this is the alternative.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I can't remember when it was, whatever. It's always the douchebag or the shit sandwich or whatever that's running. Yeah. And so like, I'm every time, and I remember people tell me, like, since I could ever vote, it was like, well, if you are so upset about it, how about you make an alternative? And so it's like, okay, you know what? We are.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
has to be something.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a good point. I really was attracted to like MPP and then People's Party of Texas because I decided that I was done with Democrats and Republicans, and Libertarians and Greens weren't that, they weren't that great either. And I want something that people can actually feel represents them. Yeah.
Okay, I know we mentioned Movement for a People's Party a few times. There have been references. I don't want to go into it doesn't have, we don't have to go too much into like the controversies and stuff, but I think it's important to understand there is confusion, I think, because when I
Mhm.
see some of these things popping up, the Movement for a People's Party, they have a different logo than you all, obviously. You guys have a completely different, you have like a rose. Is that a rose?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yellow Rose of Texas. Yeah.
And but you see People's Party of Georgia, all this stuff popping up. If you type it in on
Yeah.
Google, and obviously those people aren't associated with the People's Party of Texas, correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
That's referring to the People's Party, like this Movement for a People's Party.
Yeah.
Right. There, there are a few. So yeah, when MPP sort of you want to say implode, I guess, like commit, like really like got, yeah, let's say implode. A lot of people left, and a lot of these, we're not the only group, though we aren't in like super close contact with other groups. There are other groups in other states who are trying to do the same thing with varying levels of success.
Without the support of
Without,
MPP as
but
well.
yeah, like, but we are all, as far as us and as far as like a handful of those groups, we are completely separate from MPP. We have nothing. We have nothing at all to do with them. We are not at all affiliated with them. Yeah. So that's a little annoying, but
I would also say that the biggest, to keep it as like, broad as possible, the biggest difference is that MPP is a top-down organization,
Mhm.
and all of these other organizations are grassroots bottom-up. And
Awesome.
that's a
Okay.
huge difference in ideology. Like if you want a top-down, you're never gonna agree with somebody who wants bottom-up. Like they're never gonna agree. Like, so that's, I would say, the biggest difference delineating the two.
Yeah, People's Party of Texas practices real democracy, which I would argue that we might be the only political organization in the state of Texas that practices real democracy. We organize by consent. Everything we decide is by consent, and that's I think we want to set that example for other organizations.
Yes, I actually wanted to get into that. I'm glad that you brought that up. The only reason why I brought the previous question up is because I don't care about the People's Party either, the Movement for a People's Party. I could care less about those people. I think there's too many egos and personalities in it.
Yeah.
And I think it's basically been hijacked by a bunch of people who want to just strong arm all these issues. Like I've seen it all over the place. It's just a drama show already. It's
yeah,
kind of like with the Andrew Yang Ford Party. I see that as
Yeah.
top down as well. I don't see any sort of ideology that's binding. I don't see any kind of an end game. But
Yeah.
you all actually have terms like sociocracy, which I'm going to talk to you all about, like what is sociocracy, and you all have bylaws that I think are really important. But I brought that question up because it said on your site that in response to the movement of People's Party, you started the People's Party of Texas. And so that's the reason why I asked that question before.
Yeah.
But kind of piggybacking off of Curtis's comment, what are who decided that that was going to be kind of the legislation going forward with the People's Party of Texas? What do you mean when you say that everything is based on consent? Like, can you go into that for me, please?
Do you mind? Would you like me to take that, OC and Athena?
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
definitely.
So when we come together to make decisions, we have to agree that it's really as simple as that. There's a difference in the way we're often taught to participate in organizations. Tradition, just based on our culture, right, is we go in and we want to, we're taught to try to exert our will on everyone else. I want to push my way. We have a different approach. We invite people in, or people ask to come in, and it's how do we all come together to agree? And that's sociocracy is just a tool that helps us kind of come to agreement on things. Um, a lot of it's just talking. There doesn't have to be a formal structure for making decisions when we're just friends talking. And that's, to me, that's what democracy is. If we can all come together in a meeting and say, hey, how do we want to move forward with a financial decision, or a decision on policy, or something like, or with our bylaws or something like that. Yeah, there's no need to add a bureaucratic rigor to that process if we can all just come together, talk, um, think about what we all want out of this, and then come to an agreement. So a lot of these tools that we talk about, sociocracy and consent, are just tools that enable us, facilitate us to be able to do that amongst ourselves. And we're still learning, by the way. It's a different way of thinking. It's new to a lot of people, so new people coming in sometimes have a hard time wrapping their heads around it. I do myself sometimes, but it's something that we're all like committed to.
So I don't want to get too caught up in the naming, but I think it's cool when I heard sociocracy, because the first thing I thought, I'm not even gonna lie, being a Spanish speaker, I thought socio, like, because in Puerto Rico they use socio for like a friend, like it's a pal, and then I thought it was socialism, and I was, is that where that comes from? Is it socialistic in nature as far as the idea behind it? Mutual aid, I see a lot of emphasis on mutual aid and and mutualism and community building.
I think of it as more anarchistic, to be honest. I consider myself an anarchist as far as my political philosophy goes. If you go to like sociocracyforall.org, the website that kind of lays out the sociocracy process, a lot of it's based on just basic, what's called like horizontal decision making. If you look at like Occupy Wall Street, what happened in New York, a lot of those principles were sociocratic, which is, you can call it whatever. You can just call it democracy if you want, because that's all it's people coming together to make decisions and to govern themselves. Yeah.
I had a question for Osi and Athena about there's always issues when it comes to new political parties forming and just them having expansion of visibility and just growing a base, really, just spreading the roots out more. What is the process into creating a political party from scratch? Like, how is that? How hard is that? And what initiatives have been taken to actually run people with the People's Party of Texas in the future?
Man, well, Texas doesn't make it easy.
Yeah.
I don't know. So like, I guess when it comes to like forming a political party, there was like, well, we sociocratically decided, what type of, what is it called, like 5-2, so like what are those called, like
IRS
nonprofit,
nonprofit designation,
nonprofit IRS designation. So it's like, it's when you don't have like financial backers to just like hire lawyers to do all this stuff, we all had to become like mini experts on like nonprofits and things like that. And so, yeah, we sociocratically decided, what kind of nonprofit we want to be to like best accomplish the goals that we want to set for ourselves. And, we decided, we filed, we just opened a bank account. As far as growing the party, I think a lot of that, you mentioned mutual aid, community building. I think, first of all, those are things that I think political parties should be doing. Should be a lot more community, like especially with the money that they bring in. If they are saying that they're representing these people, that they should be with these people, helping them and making the community a thriving place to live. And so that's what we're trying to do. We do plenty of volunteering, even if it's just like going to pick up garbage at some park with a bunch of people or something like that. Tabling at events, things like that. I think, you know, we have members who are who work to, how would I say that? Like distributing food, just like community service in general. And I think when people see you in the community and they don't just see you as someone who's asking for donations or asking for a vote, but, you know, even without getting that donation, you're going to get out there and help out. I think that is the best way to build a party. I don't know, do you have anything to add?
I would just add that specifically, so it's a lot of like making friends with the people that you're trying to do all of this work with, because we, like, you know, those of us that founded it, like you said, had to become experts, but at the same time we still have to like maintain our relationships with each other, and then our relationships with like our community service and stuff, because like you said, it's about developing those relationships. And so as a part of that, like, you know, you go to all the other events for all the other organizations because you don't want to just be like, hey, we're a new thing, join us, just join us. And it's like, because that doesn't work. I don't know, I don't know, it's not a long-term thing. I think it's like, if we really want to build this any type of party, you actually have to just put in the work. So it is taking time of putting in the work, and it, yeah, and I don't know, there's more that I wanted to say, but I can't remember.
Well, that's a good point, is we're really trying to network with other let's say like-minded organizations, not even necessarily just people who
just
are like
all the area organizations that are like Curtis has pointed this out, and I'm sure it's the same across the country, where there are like 50 organizations that are doing the same thing within like 100 miles. And that's great. But man, if they could coordinate,
right,
the power that they could have in that community, like,
yeah.
So that's all, like, and the way that you do that is by humbly, at least that's the way I believe, is by just like helping, instead of, you know, actually being there, actually giving whatever you can. Okay, I can deliver food from there to there.
Right.
For that, you know, even if it's a small thing, it's like, well, you know what?
It's open,
there's never, other than election season, or when an organization is in there, the Texas Giving Day or whatever, the giving days, like then they want you, but no, we're like, what can we do for you? Because that's what in theory, some of us kind of believe that the government should be like protecting and helping its citizens, and the political parties are there to hold that to account, but we don't have that. So how would they do that? What's a better way to convince the world that your political party is like legit in its ideas, if in their own community they use the funds that other parties use for donor parties or whatever, and they like like, I know the Revolutionary Blackout, and that's a separate thing, but like they're building a library, and like that's how you do it. Otherwise it's bullshit.
Yes, it's interesting. But I've been following some of your Instagram, and I love it that there is an emphasis on human rights, obviously. The difference that I see though is you put it in action instead of all this virtue signaling that I see a lot of times. If you're coming from a genuine place, I can see that genuineness when you're having LGBTQIA outreach, and I think y'all were passing out condoms, and you guys did. What was it? The Thanksgiving event you all mentioned as well.
The People's Friendsgiving. Yeah.
It's just like you're doing by actually showing to people, as opposed to this putting out a cute statement and stuff like that. No, you have to put it into action, and I think people do appreciate that, and it also tells where you are on positions, you know, because I think a lot of that happens. I don't want to talk too much about them, but this DR Alliance, where it basically gets to a point where you're recruiting people and they use like your identity, your individual identity, as a way to be a part of that club, but it's not extracting anything positive out of the identity to share with the rest of the world, to show why the identity is so important and crucial to us as human beings. And it's more just like a show, more so than it's just people that happen to be a certain ethnicity or whatever, but it's not like, what does that actually mean unless you put it into action? And I see y'all putting that into action, and that's the difference between, I think a lot of people would be more open-minded culturally if they had that kind of a presentation, as opposed to people just presenting things, just giving out statements, this and that, but not really showing like, okay, how is that tangible? Like, what do you mean when you say LGBTQIA? What does that mean when you talk about advocacy in the political realm? And you all are actually doing that. So I can only assume that I kind of know your positions when it comes to abortion and body autonomy. But I am curious about your positions as a party when it comes to things like the economy, local economies, and where do you think money should go into local economies? Where should the majority of money go in certain areas?
We were just talking about this, and I don't think I'll be able to find the Google Doc.
Oh, do you want?
But I mean, if you think you can
Okay, I
find
think
it,
I can find it.
I can.
The infrastructure and the debt jubilee.
Right, and so exactly. So so in Texas, you might not know, people might not know that we have like a several $billion surplus this year for whatever reason. And so the state government is like deciding what they want to do with this money. Right. And so of course our Republican Greg Abbott, what he wants to do is give property tax breaks. And so it's like, okay, you want to take this money. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, this money came from sales tax. So everyone contributed to it. But he wants to give property tax breaks to only property owning citizens. So if you rent, or if you rent or you still buy shit, but you don't own property, you don't get to enjoy any of the surplus that you contributed to. And so we think that's horrific. We think that we personally, two ideas, and these aren't the only places where we think that this money should go, is one, infrastructure is something that I think is incredibly important. All sorts of infrastructure, not just roads, but pipes, wires, internet, high-speed internet to rural places. The electrical grid, that was a big story in 2021 in February during the freeze. Dozens of people died because the power turned off for like 2 weeks or something in a lot of places because we weren't prepared. Our electrical grid wasn't prepared for that sort of freeze. It could have been if they just decided to invest the money, but instead, a couple dozen deaths, I guess, was worth it to them. So infrastructure, all sorts of infrastructure. There shouldn't be one city in this state or in this country where the water isn't clean, where the water isn't okay to drink. But that is the case in more Texas cities than I care to like imagine or admit or to think about. And another thing, and maybe Curtis wants to touch on it because he's sort of the one who like got the idea, who first brought the idea out, even though I really love it, is a debt jubilee. And that's something that is, I think that's really great. It's something that used to happen. I mean, yeah, Curtis, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, please do. I was just going to ask what.
I mean, it's something I'm passionate about. I mean, debt is a form of slavery, and it is the way many people in our society of the non-owning classes are controlled. So I think the idea of a debt jubilee is one, just from a practical perspective, it's one that a lot of people can resonate with. The idea of just canceling all debts, medical debt, student debt, small business debt, and there no global and total debt jubilee is I think something that a lot of people can get behind. There's a lot of reasons that it could be the kind of thing that, if implemented, could really set a lot of kind of revolutionary change as a result of that, from something and it's a simple idea. It's a simple idea that, again, people from all walks of life can think about and gravitate towards. So as far as, some of the core things that the People's Party of Texas wants to put out there, ideas that we want to introduce into the public, I think that's one of the core ones, that we want to put out there in our literature and our messaging and communication. There's no other party in Texas that would have the guts to say something like that. And I think, we're not afraid to. There's a lot of things that I think we as the People's Party of Texas are not afraid to say that a lot of other parties, both independent and third parties, are afraid to say, and that's one of them.
You all are definitely a distinct group when it comes to like the principal aspect of it. But I guess alluding to some comments made earlier, is that collaboration at all with any other groups, not even necessarily political groups, that share a lot of your values, do you feel? And do you see going down the road that collaboration building anymore?
Yeah, all I'll say is that several of our members are members of other local organizations, and we all try whenever we participate in those other organizations to get the word out about People's Party of Texas. We've had people from other organizations come to our events. We had people from other organizations, like, for instance, come to our condom crawl and go pass out free condoms to people. And the People's Thanksgiving that you mentioned earlier, there were, I don't know how many other organizations there. Oh, you want to talk about the directory that y'all are?
I saw that on that, the anarchist library or something.
Yeah, that's the People's Library of Things. That's another project that we're trying to work on, which is like just trying to get like a lending library, but with tools. Like, I think it was originally referred to as like a tool library. So tools that you may not be able to afford, but as a community or whatever, as a library, they can invest, and then you can just borrow them. And so using the same principles of a library, the same accountability, as far as like you're a resident of the area or whatever, there's a way, there's a way to hold you liable, which is a lot of people's concerns with borrowing. And so that's one thing. But also having to do with the like working with other organizations. There's one of our members is really into the Sunrise Movement, and they have a house here in Dallas, and we've had a meeting there, maybe a couple of meetings now, and they're interested in some of the stuff. Of course, like a lot of things that we are aligned with, but the things that are new, it's like, well, they are developing their structure right now. So some of those ideas that are, intense principles to us would be very helpful to them. And some of them they take in, but like Curtis said earlier, it is, and like you're kind of alluding to, it is like, it's a huge change of like your mindset of going from, I'm sorry. Not right now.
Okay.
I mean, I think we can set there's a lot of ideas I think that we try to practice that we can set the example for. So that's perfect example you described, I think, like the movement house. And if the way we organize ourselves can influence other organizations that we're, many of us are also participants in, that if we can influence those organizations to organize themselves more democratically, then we will have succeeded. And again, our goal, so from a practical perspective, is to start to help to bring these groups together and to kind of teach them give them an example of how it could be done. So if one of us goes to another meeting from another group, then we're doing the People's Party's work, even though it's with another group. It's just as important as anything we might do under the People's Party of Texas banner.
I want to branch out into a few more issues as far as and I know everyone may have different views on certain issues and topics and occurrences, but I get the understanding about the general consensus within the People's Party of Texas. Before I get into some of those issues, I want to bring up the issue with ballot access again. Is that something that you all are trying to pursue in the near future? And are you all trying to expand outside of the state of Texas?
I would say as far as ballot access, we believe that one of the most important barriers to ballot access is like electoral viability. So that being things like changing the current voting system.
Yeah.
Instead of this first past the post, which is the current system that we have, which is the most popular, as quickly as possible, get the votes. There's alternatives like ranked choice voting where you get more of a say, and it's like my favorite, star voting. Starvoting.us is the website. And so yeah, like just literally for those type of things. Another one is approval voting to look up, and it's kind of a more simplified version of star voting, and it gives you a more explicit voice, because when you're given two options, you're not really able to say, I don't like those options, and I'm, like you're either able to vote for them or not vote for them. And so that's one of the things that we try to advocate and educate on, is like pass out information about these other voting methods and help the organizations that are doing the work in our area. And then as far as our own like ballot access, we have filed paperwork to seek ballot access. Well, I guess, yeah, we did it last year, and
It takes how many signatures?
it's like 50,000, or was that like, no, it was like 60,000, because we needed like 34 or something like that, and we wanted to have double because we figured they're going to throw out a lot of them. But we also, from personal experience, like Curtis's personal experience in Colorado and petitions, and just in general, it's really a difficult thing, a costly thing, and especially when we're trying to build up, it may not be the most important thing to prioritize when, when we could be helping people a lot more effectively right now than just getting, because like we would have to dedicate all of our time or all of our money to just gathering petition signatures just to be recognized by the state as a minor party, which wouldn't give us anything but any of our candidates could be on the ballot. They would still have to gather their own 30,000 signatures.
Yeah.
So
It's very difficult.
it basically just means you're more legitimate. And we do want that. The alternative is that we get a statewide candidate, any statewide candidate that garners like more than 5% of the vote, or something like that. Then we get ballot access. Or if you get a governor, if you get a gubernatorial candidate that gets 3%. So those might be more reasonable, but it's also like it's on our list, but I feel like it's a lower priority. Not just maybe me. And I care a lot about electoral politics, but the path is daunting and maybe just a distraction when we could be doing more effective work.
I 100% agree with that. I'm glad that you brought that up. You said something about, I had Vinay Orikonde on episode 22. He represents Rank the Vote, which is an organization that's trying to implement ranked choice voting across every state in the country. And we talked about all the three different types of ranked choice voting. You refer to star voting. I just want to get a clarification on what star voting is before we kind of dive into a few issues as far as your stances.
Okay, so in a nutshell, star voting is, say you have, it works better with more candidates. So say you have a presidential race, there are 5 candidates, and in star voting, you are not only able to decide if you want to give any of those people a vote, period, but you're able to rate them how you feel about them. So like, say all of your candidates all suck, but you're like, this one sucks out of 1 versus all the rest are 0. You can denote that, and you don't give any more of your vote to anybody that you don't advocate for. The more like simplified version I mentioned is approval voting, where it's just simply like, I would approve of that person being in, or I wouldn't. And you can still vote, still say your voice, but not give them that vote. So it gives you more democracy in the sense of, it's not just a binary. You can actually express how you feel about the person instead of just having to obligatory vote for them. And in the star voting, as compared to ranked choice voting, there is a way less risk of the like spoiler effect, because way more people are satisfied because their voice is heard. The higher liked, approved candidate is the one that wins, as opposed to just the one with the most votes. And like, that's the difference between, I think, between like what people think of as democracy and what is actual democracy. Voting is not really democracy, because you're not really given the chance to say what you feel or what you want. You're just like, these are your choices as given by the state, you know? And if you have real democracy, like Curtis was saying earlier with sociocracy, it's just talking and coming to an agreement. That doesn't mean that everybody feels the same way, but it's that everyone has chosen to prioritize this thing, to agree upon this, so that we can do something.
I would definitely look into star voting.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good way of choosing candidates. Just to answer your other question of like, if we ever plan on expanding out of the US, sort of like what Athena said, is like, right now we're focused on growing. We are going to we are going to run some like local candidates, for like maybe city council or school board or something, but those people usually don't have an RD to those next to their name. But I'm sure they would still identify. So that is something that you can do without like having statewide ballot access, I think, is running like just local candidates in like a city or municipality or county or something like that. And that's something that we would like to get into. But yeah, right now we're just focused on growing and mutual aid. And as far as expanding outside of Texas, I don't know about y'all. When this first started, so, again, when it comes to like top-down organizing versus bottom-up, I hate to bring them up again, but MPP wanted to do a top-down. So like start nationally and then like create state parties basically only to support the national party. Whereas I think what makes more sense is a confederation of state parties building a national party together. And so, like I said, there are other parties out there in other states who are, trying to get started. And I think if People's Party ever gets big enough that People's Party of Texas ever gets big enough that, we want to link up with these other smaller parties and other states, I think you only need like 6 states
to be a national party.
So it's conceivable that at some point in the future, I for sure, I mean, that's the dream, right? And it would be like, that we're solid enough when we find other state parties that are also solid enough who we also agree with enough to form like a state or to form a national coalition or confederation. That would be great. But right now we're focused on Texas.
And understandably so, because I think my audience is pretty aware of some of the loopholes and the potholes that early political parties have when it comes to traction, because of this infrastructure that's absolutely undemocratic. I mean, there's nothing democratic about it.
Yeah.
Just with the corruption, the money, all the behind the scenes schemes and bribery and everything else that goes along with it. But I did have a few questions about mutual aid. And when you say mutual aid, is that going to be, if someone gives to the People's Party of Texas, that money goes to community organizing and events and stuff like that? Is that what that money's for? Um, and I guess what is the end game when it comes to mutual aid? Because for me, I was talking to Jake Carrico and Jacob in episode 18, and we talked a lot about mutual aid, and they would identify as Marxists, I guess, but we did talk about anarchists. I think they were former anarchists. I would identify, I don't know what I am exactly.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Left
Yeah.
libertarian, anarchist leanings. I mean, I got a
Mhm.
lot of different, but they also seem to propose the same kind of concerns too about mutual aid. It seems like after a while, people, like everyday people, don't have the sustainability at times to give money to
Yep.
things, because the mutual aid is going to run out eventually. So what are your stances as far as what other infrastructure could be in place to where there's not such a strain on everyday people to constantly, I guess, fund projects at a local level, for instance?
So I think one of the things that makes, or at least that has us more leaning anarchist, not necessarily, maybe just some of us, whatever, is that the mutual aid, like in addition to just like the mutual aid that is, commonly referred to as mutual aid, I think we also think of like developing urban farming, like, developing like, the little plots of like just stuff that we can be sustainable without having to be dependent on money or, generosity. So is that kind of thing. Like I said, the tool library, one thing with Curtis, with, the technology education, the guerrilla technology education, those kind of things. So basically what I'm saying is, the mutual aid, I hope personally, would morph into a parallel society that functions better. And, people being in charge would be afraid, and whatever, that might be a thing, but more just regular people will go to the system that's working, like, because it's sustainable and it's not dependent on, this outside stuff. But that's how one way I'm imagining it, with like, gardens and the,
Yeah.
just sharing tools together and teaching each other. I know that's very whatever utopian, but it's also like, we have to start now. We have to share the knowledge. We have to like put
Yeah.
these ideas. So yeah.
And that's okay. And it's okay that not labels are silly. Oftentimes they're made to divide more than they're made to bring people together. So I try not to be dogmatic about labels and things like that. Ultimate practical reality is that what's the point of a political party to solve problems? That's what we espouse to do, whether that's through our own mutual aid work or through like work building the party. And if pursuing some kind of electoral strategy is going to solve a problem, then great. If we determine that pursuing an electoral strategy in a certain area is going to be way more effort than it's worth and is not going to solve any problems for us, then we'll focus on something else. But yeah, like Athena said, I think what we want to build and what we want to encourage other organizations to build is an infrastructure where people can rely on each other rather than rely on the state or someone else to solve it. Because one, they can't do it. The state doesn't solve anyone's problems. It's not designed to, right? That's why I call myself an anarchist. The state is not designed to solve problems. It's designed to funnel wealth to a certain class of people. So how do we live based on that? And we're all struggling. We all try to live in that system. But if we can reach out to more people, bring us together, and then start to solve these problems, such as how to get everyone food, how to break everyone free from being kind of shackled by technology and things like that. I'm a huge proponent of education because I think that's a lot of where that stuff starts. Society kind of silos people. You're only allowed to do certain things. There are certain ideas that we can all learn, such as technology, such as food growing and agriculture. such as like harm reduction and things like that. So it's, from a like a strategic perspective, I think that's why we tend to focus on those kinds of efforts as opposed to just strictly how do we get ballot access. Well, if we take all the money that's donated to us and spend it to try to get ballot access in an election, we know we're going to lose because the media is never going to, help put that idea in people's
Mhm.
minds. um, what was the point? What was the point of that effort, right? And that's why, like, I love like things the Green Party stands for and stuff, but they're never going to win in a major election. So what's the point?
Mhm.
They could spend that energy, and other organizations can spend that energy doing actually solving problems on the ground for people. So I think that's where our focus wants to be, at least from my perspective. And other people in the People's Party of Texas can have different views, but we can still we still do come together and make decisions all the time, even though we have different views on things.
That's wonderful that you all have that kind of communication network set up. And I like it is very intricate in a way. Maybe it's not to you all, but just looking at the circles, I'm looking at all these different tabs and stuff on here, and it is very deliberate, but it shows that you're really trying to put emphasis on communication and equity and making sure that everyone has a voice in that organization.
We try to practice what we preach,
Hmm.
as much as possible. That's really important. If you come to a People's Party of Texas meeting, you are welcomed. No, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you've never been to a political meeting in your life. I don't care what your education level is, what your class level is, what you look like. You are welcome, and your voice is going to be listened to. And you can make decisions. So if you've never participated in politics, come to a People's Party of Texas meeting. You will be a politician. You will be in an organization that cares about your voice and wants to give you a voice.
Are you guys going to expand any? Because I know you have social media presence, but do you all have like weekly broadcasts, like for the public? Do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have any other like video outlet channels right now?
So this is something that we were literally just talking about this earlier this week.
I was in your meeting. That's why there's 2 times I've caught you. You brought something
Yeah.
up, and I was like, "Oh yes, we were just talking about."
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah. Oh, you got some spies in there or something. Yeah, so we were talking about, so we record all of our meetings and we put them up in our gilded sort of community. But and I took it upon myself, this is what I'll do this weekend, is set up probably 2 YouTube channels, one to just put all of our meetings, because another thing that we believe in is transparency. That we have nothing to hide. No one's like embezzling anything. No one is making decisions in the dark. So we put all of our meetings out there. So for anyone who wants to watch, they missed the meeting, or if they just want to see what we're about, and we want to put those on like a YouTube channel. And like, yeah, we wanted to have another YouTube channel where we might have small videos, or maybe like montages from an event or something like that, or like a short 2-3 minute video on like debt jubilee or star voting or something like that, to explain to people what it is. I mean, who knows what these things are? These are like niche, debt jubilee, they shouldn't be, but like, not many people know about them. And so yes, it's something that we really want to do, is expand our social media presence everywhere. I mean, we're on Mastodon, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit. But we want to, it's just, we're 100% like volunteer powered. And so we all have our own lives and we're all working like so hard. So it's sometimes hard to like put in the work, but it's still something that at least I know I am, and I'm sure everyone else is like passionate about and really wants to. Yeah, that's something that we're going to be focusing on a lot,
Yeah.
especially in these coming days and weeks. Yeah.
And we can definitely use help. So if anyone's listening and they want to help,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, please.
reach out and help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure I have some Texas followers and listeners because, um, like we're really trying to expand Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. And like you mentioned, OC, I'm just I'm a professor by trade. I'm not currently working right now, so I am able to dedicate more time to the podcast, but I'm just an everyday person, and I don't have this organization. Like I'm doing everything, creating all the content, and it's not going to come out as often as people want it to, but the fact that we're doing this, you know, like as people, like we're being proactive in things, and that's what you have to do. Like we don't have all this financial backing to have all these elaborate designs and technological advantages and stuff. And that's not the point. I wouldn't even want that, I don't think. I think the message is more important than all these other things that we sort of get spoiled with in the world of technology.
Yeah.
I do have some questions, and it's funny, the star voting, I'm really going to have to ask Vinay when he comes back on the show, because I know he seemed to be pushing the ranked choice voting really hard, and that's fine. That's why I brought him on. But I definitely want to ask him more about this star voting just to get his view on it, because now you all have me thinking about, okay, let me look at this star voting, because I saw some people talking about alternatives, even to ranked choice voting, and the first to post system, whatever we got going on right now, this majority rule stuff. But what are some of the stances that the People's Party of Texas have on? I'm assuming that y'all are anti-war, but what does that mean in tangibility? Because people say that a lot, I'm anti-war, but what does that mean? And what are some of the stances taken in this current conflict right now between Ukraine and Russia?
I could speak personally. Being anti-war, it's one of the things that got me politically active. Were wars and like the cause of wars. And when you like look into like wars like from Vietnam to Libya, it's like, oh, it's bullshit. Like it's a lie. Like, oh, okay. Like I see. And it's because war is like the worst thing ever. And like when you see that it started just through greed, ego, whatever you want to call it. Just I don't know. Like, yeah, you see that it's like, I don't know, you sort of see the world for what it really is. And so I personally, like, again, I am anti-war. So I am against this war in Ukraine. I don't think it should have started. I don't know. I didn't realize that. I don't want to get, because I'm gonna like make enemies. Like I didn't realize Ukraine was a state. I didn't realize that they were like the 51st state that like we have to go to war because like the Russians are fucking with. Like it's terrible. There's a war in Ethiopia. I haven't heard about that. There's wars everywhere. There's shit going on everywhere. Why does Ukraine not? So I'm not sure why we gave $100 billion to Ukraine when there's homeless people on the street, when there's like unclean water, when there's fucking hungry kids in school. I'm not sure why we're giving $100 billion to Ukraine. There's nothing you get to, I don't, Putin didn't hack the election. I don't care that he's a bad guy. I don't care that you don't like the Russians or you think like Donald Trump was a Russian agent. I don't care. I want that $100 billion to go to people who need it in this country. I don't think that there should be war. Sorry, that's just my take. Like if like I also think that like NATO and all, like, is Ukraine in the North Atlantic? Why do they need to join NATO? Like I'm you know, it's all fucking imperialism. It's all just like each side poking each other because they want resources, or there's something like, it's never what it is on the surface. And they're just playing around, they're playing their Game of Thrones, and like regular people are dying. And so I'm not saying that there's no such thing as a just war. I'm not saying that that doesn't exist, but like Ukraine isn't a just war. That's I guess that's my piece. I'm sorry. I know there's people.
No, you're good. No, that's good. That's great. I think we need to, and one of the biggest things on this platform is to sort of not intentionally every single time we disagree with the fake news or the mainstream media, not to just disagree with it, but to have the evidence of how this stuff is just completely just advancing the status narratives
Yep.
and the status agenda, just funneling money,
Yeah.
justifying any way you want. Like you said, there's wars happening in Yemen right now and Somalia. A lot of it has to do with the United States. If we're not actively dropping the drones and the bombs, we're coordinating with other countries to funnel the money in to fund the war that's happening in that particular geographic space. And so the Ukraine-Russia war, I was curious just to hear your views about, and that's when I kind of started distancing myself away from people like the Green Party. And I know that great people in the Green parties across the country, but I started to really have a negative perception of the Green Party, just some of the statements I've heard about, even about COVID. I mean,
Yeah.
just I was kind of baffled by just some of the stances that the people took, and I'm like, you realize that that's just kind of contributing to the division more of people. Like
Yep.
we could be working with those people that you're condemning, and we should be working together as everyday people and not condemning them, but we need to be condemning this government above this, calling all the shots.
Yep.
Because they can't help it that they're brainwashed, but we have to talk to each other to avoid the brainwashing sometimes. And I don't think we do a good enough job communicating, effectively to each other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the war. I mean, what's really any war, but using Ukraine and Russia as a specific example, you have a bunch of working class people killing each other. Why? For a bunch of rich people. Like, so what propaganda has to happen to convince people to do that? Working class people to kill each other on behalf of people that don't care about them at all. That's, you can't argue that people, the elite in charge, give a shit about any of us. So I think it goes into, just being anti-war. I think it also goes into being anti-police state, being anti-militarized police. It's the same problem. How do we solve that? I think convince working people to stop doing it. And if that means working to make their lives better, so you don't have to, like me, why did I join the military? Because I needed college money, like a lot of people in my demographic. What else was I going to do? Have no prospects for life. And at the time, I felt that was my only option. Why aren't there better options for people? To say, hey, you don't have to be a cop. You don't have to be a soldier. You don't have to go around killing other people just so your life can be okay. And that's how we're going to solve the problem, I think, of war and militant policing.
It's funny that you brought up policing, because that was going to be my next question. What's your stance as the Texas People Party when it comes to police? Because I know Athena referred to Revolutionary Blackout Network earlier, and I'm not going to comment on them per se. I have my views about them. Like, I used to follow them some, but I think sometimes we get so caught up in just all these rivals and wars and all. I'm not into the YouTube war shit.
That's
That's where I separate myself from that. I like some of the people over there, but I'm not into the YouTube war shit. Like, that's like
drama.
Stop fucking talking to those people. Like, they don't. If they're clearly not on your board, on your agenda, why waste your time talking about these people just constantly?
Exactly.
It's like that's all they talk about, just to get the views of person. That's what I think. I mean, is it just
that's
all it is.
like fuck all these personalities? But what's your stance on police? Do you see a purpose for police at all, or do you believe in just complete abolition of what we know as the police?
Well, I'll let y'all take it. I think we all have different views. We can.
I mean, I can speak. There's a personal level, and then there's like a what the People's Party policy is, or what our stance is. I'm for full police abolition. I don't think it's needed. I think it causes more crime and violence that it ever claims to solve. But that being said, from a practical standpoint, I think we can work towards demilitarizing police. I live in a small suburb. The cops around here drive around in SUVs. They wear Kevlar. They're armed to the teeth. Why? It drives me insane to see that. They're thugs, and they dress and act like thugs. They act like soldiers. talking about, you know, the incident that happened in Nashville a couple of weeks ago. When you
Right.
watch that video, they're soldiers. They act like, when I was in Iraq, they acted the same way that soldiers in Iraq acted towards the enemy. And that's
Mhm.
insane to me. Like, and they were trained to act that way. And that's, you know, the ultimate thing when it comes to police. Police act in the way they are trained and encouraged to act. So, you know, it's, you know, whenever an incident like that happens and a cop, you know, they throw the offending officer or officers under the bus, but they were only doing what they were taught to do. And it's the system that teaches them to do that.
Yeah. Do you want to give your take?
Yeah, sure. I generally think that I'm very anti-hierarchy. So if you give people authority, they're more than likely going to abuse it. And
Yeah.
so when you say these people are better, then they should be held to a higher standard, right? But then I think no, because they're a better person than you. So like their standard is already better. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think the only way that you can have like real policing is purely community, like within, you live there, that you're policing your home,
Yeah.
you know, your family, your neighbors, whatever. And it's not like, yeah, militarized and they're not a better particular citizen. It's just like, this is my duty to my fellow man or whatever. Not like I am better, I am looking for crimes to solve, because they're not. Like,
They're not.
yeah, so
But-
I'm definitely defund, abolish the current system. And I think that we could, like, we're not stupid. People are smart enough to figure out how to take care of each other. And
Right.
if somebody commits a crime in their community, they'll hold them accountable.
Right.
So I don't think we necessarily need the whole system that we have.
Yeah. I think that the only reason that I think like 50 to 90% of police can just be gotten rid of. I think that the only reason we have so much police is because, for one, I mean, just because of like the nature of like our corporate capitalist system, there's so many people who are in desperate situations. And also, I mean, you know, when it comes to like criminal justice reform, like we put so many people in prison and just make them more hardened and better criminals. And then they come out and they commit crimes. They're like, how could this happen? And
Oh,
so, and so
Yeah.
I think we're over criminalized as a society. You know, like drugs should not be illegal. There are plenty of like crimes that really shouldn't be illegal, that you don't need police to come in and like beat someone up because they committed like certain crimes. I you know, I just think where you mentioned like being like, you know, Kiga, like a left-leaning libertarian, like I feel like you might agree that like the government is watching us a bit too closely, and that's why they need police, because we're just over criminalized and we don't have like the freedom that we were, I guess, promised. And that includes like federal, like it's kind of wild that like the president has like his own like personal police force, like or the executive branch has like the FBI and the ATF and all this shit like that. What are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
the FBI exists because like they blackmail people into like existing, where they like set people out, like they just like blackmailed the important, because they were listening to anyway. Let's not get into a history. I don't like the FBI. Come at me. Don't come at me. Sorry. But, yeah. None of us here are huge fans of like cops the way they are now. And it's like, so when we talk about like, well, what's realistic? It's like, okay, like ending things like qualified immunity, you know, criminal justice reform, ending the war on drugs, you know, not putting nonviolent offenders into a prison, things like that. These are things that are going to be especially hard in Texas because law enforcement has such an oversized influence on the Texas government, on every government, up and down the ladder, local to state. Prisons are big business. There are certain towns that are literally prison towns, where like that whole area is just there to sustain the prison. which is-
Texas is full of those towns, just
Yeah.
decent towns. Yeah, it's crazy.
it's sad and scary, but yeah, actually, when I realized that you were in Nashville, I was wondering your take on the Tyree Nichols thing, because
That was in Memphis.
oh, it's still Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee. Yeah. I talked with Jay Clark on episode 21. Like we
Mhm.
the second half of the interview was all about Tyree Nichols and police. I mean, I echo your sentiments. I don't think we should even have police. It's all related with the carceral state. The military is related with the carceral state. The intelligence agencies are all tied in. It's just a hierarchical system. You know, the intelligence agencies, and then you have the military next in changing of command, and then your local police are basically taking orders from them. And so when you militarize groups, they're going to carry out militant activities. And so they're not in it to help people. And there's no such thing as good apples, bad apples. I mean, it's part of the system, like Athena was saying. So those people are going to take those power approaches in their mind, even if they are good people to some people, but they're just agents of government that are enforcing the militarism from above. So they're not there to protect us. They're there to enforce and execute people. And that sounds like an aggressive stance, but it's really not. I mean, how many more killings have to happen before people realize that this is like never going to change?
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. It's absolutely horrible what happened with Tyree Nichols and his family, and the countless number. That's just what the fuck they're broadcasting. We don't know what else is going on. That's just what they're showing. And I can imagine this throughout history, just what's happened to people. In this position. So it's really hard to just to see it just constantly, just in the news. It's an unfortunate reality, but it's tied into the drug war. It's tied into militarization of police in certain neighborhoods. It's tied into. It's not a coincidence that these things are happening in big cities.
Oh yeah,
it's not a coincidence at all, and it's really unfortunate what's happening in our country. But I think more people are waking up, and regarding the waking up process, I'm curious to get each one of y'all stances before we head out, because I do want y'all back on. Like, I definitely want to invite you back on. We could talk for 2 or 3 more hours.
Oh yeah.
I actually have to I got invited to a panel later this afternoon, and my kids are all acting crazy right now. So I'm gonna
Saturday morning. I get it.
But what has been the reception of the People's Party of Texas with the people that you all are around? When you go talk to people and you tell them about the People's Party of Texas, what has been the reception from different types of people?
Like when I mention it, I mean, I definitely get a lot of skepticism, like third party, what? And so like a lot of when I encounter people, and I mention that, it's hard to tell people, hey, we use the term political party to describe ourselves, and that's kind of how we're organized in the eyes of the law, like as a nonprofit organization, but we're more than that. We're more than just trying to, we're not an apparatus to put up candidates. Again, that's a tactic that could help us solve problems, but we are about bringing people in the community together. That is our ultimate goal. So, and I think that's some people, it's hard for people to get that because it's so antithetical to the way we're taught that government and politics and democracy works. So, how do we get past that? Just set the example as much as we can. Be as inviting as possible and set the example, and show people that there could be a better way.
Yeah. I'll say for me, it's mixed. It's always like like I told one of my good friends, but he is very much a mainline conservative. Like he keeps recommending Ben Shapiro to me, and it's like,
oh God, are you serious?
the great guy. He's a great guy. Yeah,
He sounds like a good guy, but like, wow.
Yikes.
But like, so I told him about it, and he just like looks at me. It's like, what is that? Some commie thing? And it's just like
They love saying communism.
it's just like, no, it's like when you say peoples, it's like, oh, you're communist. It's like, are you not a person?
I know,
Like, are we not?
I don't
But
understand
like,
that.
you know, it's like, no, it's not just some commie thing. It's you know, it's a third party, but it's also just like, yeah, community organization. You believe, I would say a part of my political awakening has been, I personally believe that, like, you know, there are so many more issues. I think that this whole like dichotomy of left and right is just used to divide us. And there's so many more issues that people who would say that they're on the left or the right agree on when it comes to like just making people's lives better. Everyone wants the same thing in their life, you know, regardless of whether you're Democrat or Republican. They just want to like live in peace and thrive and like have opportunities and, you know, things like that, basic things, not be abused by their government. And so like I would say, if you consider yourself whatever you consider yourself, the People's Party is not against you. You will find a place here. I think that people who think that they're on opposite sides of some spectrum really are not. It's like a handful of like wedge social issues. But when it comes to like just helping people, we are not on opposite sides of the spectrum. And I would hope that that wouldn't prevent anyone from checking out the People's Party, seeing what we're all about. It's not just some commie thing. It has nothing.
We did read the Communist Manifesto.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, we have a book club going, and we have a lot of different books. But one of them was the Communist Manifesto, and we chose it by random. And so yeah, we did just read it, and we actually critiqued it. We actually like we were reading it as an educational tool, and it's like everyone, you should read it. Like you shouldn't just believe what people tell you about anything. You should like, you know, read it and figure out how you feel. But like, so yeah, so there's some common stuff in it. But like, come on, check it out. Yeah, I guess that's all I'll say. What do you got?
Yeah, I would say a mixed view, and like if it's I just like have one particular and like in my mind of a bad one, and it was just late, like at a marijuana festival, and a Democrat comes over, and yeah, you already know, like a Democrat's worse than a Republican, man.
Yeah.
And she's just like, oh, well, like, what are you guys doing? Like, you know, like we're getting on her lawn or something. And I'm like, we're People's Party of Texas, blah. And she's like, stop, ah! And she literally started screaming and ran away. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's what I would expect. But then, you know, alternatively, when I've told other people about People's Party of Texas, and they would say, yeah, is it a communist group, or is it like the People's Republic of China? I'm like, yeah, okay. And it is the people. So if the people in the, you know, in the People's Party of Texas are all communists, then it will be communist. If the people in the People's Party of Texas are all, but if the people in the People's Party of Texas are representative, which is the hope, then it will be a People's Party. Yeah. And then people, or at least the one girl that I'm having in mind, was just like, wow, I never thought of a government or a party that listened to the people. And I was just like, just that idea. And I'm like, yeah, I remember thinking that too. And then it's like, yeah, there doesn't have to not be.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's positive and negative, but yeah.
I'm gonna have to get you all in touch with one of my guests, and I'll call them a comrade now, since they initiated me into. I'm a part of this directory now, this secret directory. So I'm a part of this. It's not even a group or anything, but we talked a lot about Marxism and anarchism and stuff. Like we've done like 2 or 3 episodes now, and there's a lot of overlap. Like I'm getting kind of like that energy, just like hearing this conversation. And I'm all about it. I'm all about it. Like I'm down for a cause or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's kind of refreshing to hear that, but it's also funny to hear some of the stuff you're saying too, because I'm about to go to one of the most conservative parts of the country in a few weeks for spring break. I'm going to go to the thumb of Michigan. That's where my wife is from. It's
Yeah.
Northeast Michigan, very, very conservative
Uh-huh.
area. But the funny thing about it is that I can only think about communism sometimes when I'm there, because the way they live is very communistic.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like, without calling it that, it's like just the tendencies, like all
Yeah.
you would think. I think a lot of those people would be on board. It's just
The
their
name.
mind has already been,
Mhm.
they've mischaracterized something in their mind because of
Yep.
what they've been taught and the way they've been raised and stuff. But the way they actually live is funny. It's like, it's what you all are describing, like working together as a community.
Yeah.
And it's like, you would think that that would be such a universal message in a lot of these areas. It's like, okay, y'all don't trust the government either, right? We don't either. So why are you arguing with us? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
we have
Right. Yeah.
something.
Exactly.
So why are we arguing with each other? Why don't we do something together? You know?
Mhm.
Most people want more anarchism or communism or socialism in their life. They just don't realize it. These terms have just been poisoned by propaganda and all these things over the years. It's why I also don't like labels, because every label has baggage. And it's like, people, if you didn't have that label, like you said, it's like, you people live more communistic than you realize. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
you all you have like posters of capitalism on your wall. And it's like, you don't realize, but like
I mean, most people's families are very communist. Like, that's how we live. You know,
Right.
we share everything. That's part of
Mhm.
what being a family is about. Why can't we just expand that out broader and broader and include more people in our, communal families and global families?
Because they have to compare everything to something that they don't know about, like in a distant land.
Mhm.
And I'm telling them, you realize that this is a completely different context right here, right? It's like,
Mhm.
it's whatever you make it. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be, you don't have to refer to a history book or anything. And that's the one thing, the one issue I have when I get bombarded with a bunch of theory and stuff.
Mhm.
I'm a Black person in Tennessee
Mhm.
that's 40 years old. What does, sometimes there's a disconnect between that and me.
Yeah.
And so I can kind of get that skepticism. But at the end of the day, there's still ideas, and we need to talk about the ideas and sort of debunk the myths around the positivity of some of the ideas that we're talking about, and sort of, but it's all part of the education. That's our job, is to educate, because they've been poisoned every day. People have been poisoned every day with completely different ideas and information. So we have to be the carriers of the information, and we can only talk to people so much. They're going to believe what they're going to believe, but we have way more in common than we do different. Like, I know that for a fact. I've
Yeah.
lived 40 years, and I've came to that conclusion that we definitely, a lot of this divisiveness is manufactured by people who want it to happen,
Mhm.
to advance, and keep the status quo intact. That's the only way they can survive, is
Yeah.
to keep that messaging going on and on.
Mhm.
But I wanted to reach out and say thank you all again for joining me. I want you all back on for sure. Like,
Thank you.
I definitely want you all back on if you accept the invitation.
Yeah.
And what would be the best way for an audience member who had a question for you or just wanted to keep in touch with you and contact you? What would be the quickest way for that person?
What do you think? The website or?
Or just volunteer at People's Party of Texas
I
.org.
don't know.
On email. I mean,
Is that email on the website, or?
it's
Yeah.
I think the form on the website just sends it directly to that email.
Okay. So yeah, the website is peoplespartyoftexas.org. Correct. And
Yep.
yeah, so peoplespartyoftexas.org. There's a contact us section. And if you fill that out, it'll send it right to our email, and we can get you hooked in. We can send you a gilded invite or anything else you would need to know. Yeah, that might be the best way
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, we have monthly meetings where what we call our core circle, all party members come and meet over a Zoom chat, and that's a great way for somebody who wants to just introduce themselves, check us out, talk with us, see what we're about. And then ideally, once, if they like it, then they would get plugged into a circle and start kind of helping with some work.
You have
Yeah.
to be in the state of Texas to be a member, correct?
Yes. For the People's Party of Texas. Yeah.
I was looking at the site and stuff, but and people were asked, like, this is a networking device, and so we will need the People's Party of Texas down the road when
Yeah.
it comes to collaboration and stuff. And I don't want people to get the idea either that when I interview people in individual states, that doesn't affect you. It does affect you. These ideas affect all of us. And so we need to think more broad as opposed to, oh, that has nothing to do with me, I'm in another state.
Yeah.
No, we need to keep supporting each other and the messaging. And
Yeah.
and check out the People's Party of Texas website. I'm going to link all that in the episode description. And I've had a great conversation with you all. There's so many
did too,
people
yeah.
in line that we have coming on the forum. I'm not even going to name the people because there's just so many people. I think we have 13 guests lined up before the month of
Nice.
April.
Yeah.
So we are growing as a platform, and hopefully we can bring more independent minded voices, and people can get a broader perspective on life and have a better communal understanding of each other. But anyway, beautiful people, Curtis, OC, Athena, thank you all so much for participating, and I will have you all back on, and have a great day.
All right.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to it. Thank you so much, Kiko.
Yeah, we're
Thank
looking
you.
forward to it.
See you later.